welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. My name is Gabrielle Crichlow. I am your host, and let me tell you what this show is about. So, this is the show where we like to have real talk about real things. We tend to focus on certain topics. We tend to focus on entrepreneurship. What else? Empowerment. We've done episodes about resiliency, self care. We've done plenty of episodes about living with disabilities. So we've covered a lot of different ground. And today I am excited about today because I have a brand new guest to the show, a brand new guest to the hot seat, but it is a repeat topic and it is a current thread that I am doing right now. So I love it when I bring back topics to the show, and I love it when I have brand new guests on the hot seat. So let's get right into it. So, as we are a tutoring company, a Step Ahead Tutoring Services, it is fitting that we talk about tutoring, right? So, with that said, the topic of the show is Talking with Tutors, Part 7. This is the 7th installment of this sub-series thread. I'm trying to figure out what to call it, but this is the 7th installment of Talking with Tutors. And so any opportunity I have to talk to a fellow tutor, wait, I see a comment. We got an onlooker. Evening, everyone. Hey, how you doing? Dash trees. So when I get another opportunity to talk to a fellow tutor about the tutoring industry, I am all for it, you guys. And any opportunity to shine light on tutoring, I'm all for it. And I'm particularly looking forward to today because we're going to talk about tutoring Chinese, right? Teaching Chinese, teaching foreign languages, and all that good stuff. So I am definitely looking forward to that. So let's get right into it. So let me tell you who is the brave soul that is going to sit on that hot seat. Well, let me tell you who the brave soul is. So her name is Sandra Jeffrey. And let me tell you, she is an international education advocate who supports and empowers others to step out of their comfort zone. Boom. All right. So without further ado, I am going to, I want to close that window. All right. I am going to bring her to the stage. Hi, Sandra. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. So I see we have a couple of um of onlookers here. So you know, you guys watching right now, if you're watching this in real time, feel free to leave your comments in the chat. All right, all right, Sandra. So we're talking about tutoring and specifically, oh, Carlette. Hi, Carlette. Wait, where's her? Oh, okay, wait. There it is. Hi, Colette. How you doing? All right, so we have a couple of onlookers today. All right, yeah, so we're here to talk about tutoring foreign languages, specifically tutoring Chinese, and I definitely want to um, hear your experience on that. So I'm going to pass the baton over to you, and tell us about your experience.
Thank you for having me on your show today. I've been teaching Chinese unofficially for about 15, 20 years since I started studying Chinese. What I've learned is once I learned something new in the language, I just shared that information with others, whether I was in a nail salon or just in a library with others or just practicing Chinese. I've always had this interest in sharing the simplicity of the language and how anyone can learn the language with others. And I started doing that just once I started learning the language. It became more formalized as I got older and got my formal education together. I started teaching tutoring Chinese, and now I have a company where I focus on teaching Chinese to all kids, mostly starting from age 10 and up, and adults. I start challenging people to study Chinese and showing them, oh, it's really that easy, and you can learn a foreign language, especially a language like Mandarin Chinese, because it's considered one of the most difficult languages in the world.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You brought up an interesting point. There's two types of Chinese, right? There's Cantonese and then there's Mandarin.
Well, there are multiple dialects of Chinese. There's Mandarin Chinese, which is the standard language um, from officially from Beijing, which is the capital. That's the standard language. And then throughout the country, there are different dialects. So, for example, in Canton or Guangzhou, they speak Cantonese. So the written language is exactly the same, but the speaking is different. So the tones in Mandarin is four tones. There are four tones in Mandarin, but for Cantonese, it's six or nine tones. Then you have Shanghainese. Every region has an ease, right? That's what the dialect is called. So Shanghainese is a completely different language, and most of the Chinese are literally they don't understand each other. They can write it out and they'll understand, but speaking wise, they won't understand it if they don't speak Mandarin Chinese because that's the standard. That's what they learn in school. So if you're in Fujianese or Fujianhua, that is the language of Fujian province. So in Taiwan, they speak it's a little different. In Taiwan, they speak Taiwanese, which is the native language of Taiwan, and then they
Mhm.
also speak Mandarin because of the migration of Taiwanese mainland Chinese people that went over after the Cultural Revolution. So there's different dialects in China. So there are many dialects. So there's Mandarin is the most popular one. Mandarin Chinese is the standard. Then you have Fujianese. Then you have Shanghainese. Then you have Cantonese. So it's a very long list.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't know there
Yeah,
was all those different versions.
yeah.
So, what's the version that's taught in schools?
Mandarin Chinese. So if you're what they do in Chinese on television, on movies and TV shows, they'll have if you ever noticed if you now you'll know at the bottom of the screen, they'll have it the written language, the characters written, and that's so that it's universally understood by everyone because it's spoken differently. But the reading is exactly the same. So they'll see one word but pronounce it differently.
Oh, okay. So wait, so why Mandarin in public schools as opposed to the other dialects?
Well, it's the standard language. That's the official language of China, Mandarin Chinese. So just like in the United States, the official language is English, not Spanish or a different language. The official language is Chinese. So, for example, in Hong Kong, the official language was Cantonese because of where its location is in relation to Guangzhou or Canton. But once the Chinese government took over in 1997, then they changed it over, and the official language of Hong Kong is the same as mainland China, which is Mandarin Chinese. So they started educating kids in school to learn Mandarin Chinese as a standard official language. They universalized it basically.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So, I mean, the obvious question, of course, what got you into Chinese?
Well, my story is interesting. I was I started traveling abroad and going to China in college, and it really started out as a dare. Someone told me that I couldn't do it, and I thought to myself, "How dare you say that I can't do something?" Because my mother taught me I could do anything on this planet, and I can. And so, next thing I know, I was going to the study abroad office. I filled out the application. Didn't know that much about China, and I took a chance. Um, and next thing I know, I'm on my way to board a plane to go to China. And I had no idea, there were four other people in my program that went on the trip with me. And that's how it really started. And it was the best decision, the best leap of faith and chance I've ever taken in my life.
So what so you decided to stick it out,
Yeah.
so when you got to China, tell us your experience when you got to the country.
So when I what one of the biggest things that kept me going or kept me interested in Chinese, because as soon as you get there, you're obviously going to face cultural shock, right? Because it's a different environment, a different culture. Everything was brand new. I remember my mom packed the tuna fish in a can. It was tuna, and you have mayonnaise and crackers all in a can. I had about 10 of them with me just because I wasn't sure if I could eat or would eat the food. But when I got there, you know, I was willing to experiment. I was willing to try as a 21-year-old, girl from New York City. Yeah, I know the Chinese restaurants in New York, but it's not the same when you get to mainland China, and things are different. And so I just took a chance, and the other people around me, not only my classmates from my college, but the other international students on campus, they also embraced and were willing to try something new. So I took that leap of faith, and I also tried something new, and I taste different food, and I enjoyed it. My Chinese classes were hard in the beginning because I didn't understand anything. I didn't know any Chinese. But then on that one day when I finally it clicked, I was on a bus and I repeated. I had to go to the China Hotel to get a chicken patty. That's what it was. That's where you could get chicken patties in 1991. I got on the bus and I said the China Hotel in Chinese. The bus driver understood me, and I was in shock because it was really resonating with me. It really, they understood me, and I'm not Chinese. I got to the hotel. I bought what I had to get. Then I had to get on the bus again to make sure I get back to campus. And I was
Hmm.
able to say my school name clearly for the bus driver to drop me home. And from that point on, I was like, I could do this. Those two words. And I said, I could do this. I can speak Chinese just from learning those two phrases. And that's what encouraged me to continue studying Chinese.
Yeah, it's definitely any opportunity that anyone gets, especially someone young, to travel to a different country. I definitely encourage that as well, because I was telling you in the preliminary interview, I also went to China,
Hmm.
but it's a 2 week like youth summit that I
Hmm.
went to. But I'm trying to remember. I went to Beijing, Xi'an, and Shanghai,
Right.
and it was definitely a culture shock.
Always.
It's I mean the language, of course, but also like just seeing like all the buildings. It's so computerized, and um like I think there was like a big robot statue I saw. I think it was in Shanghai, and um I mean the pollution in Beijing, let's
Yeah.
point that out there.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a culture shock when I went. So that was
Yep.
an experience in itself. But let's get into well, I mean, we'll talk about I have a couple more episodes with you, but I want to just get more into the language itself. So
Okay.
now you at some point you decided um, to tutor Chinese, right,
Yeah.
to students. So tell us about that.
Well, I was the executive director of an international nonprofit, and we provided scholarships for high school students in New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Denver, for students to go to China and study Chinese. So that's kind of where, from my experience abroad, kind of put everything together because I can share and help and encourage more students to study Chinese. And part of the program included Chinese language in the morning for the kids, and then in the afternoon, and then in the afternoon we had different type of excursions for the kids around the city, so they can practice Chinese. So what I did was incorporate a way of teaching the kids or practicing, giving them the time to practice their Chinese in an interactive way. So that's kind of the fruit of how this all started, because I the kids would go, for example, on the train. They would go to Tiananmen Square, and they would have to figure out how to get to Tiananmen Square. So this is a way of me educating the kids um, in a way that is very practical, experimental, and also for them to hands-on, for them to learn. Okay, I can get the language. So that's kind of how um, um, uh, the tutoring work began for me, because I was able to do it in a hands-on experience. Years later, after I left that organization, and I returned to the States, I started substituting, doing tutoring classes at local schools here. And then eventually I started my own company where I can tutor Chinese to young kids starting at 10 years old and older, and adults. And for the adults, I focus on survival Chinese classes, mainly because at this particular time, since China is closed, once it opens, I guess in a year or two, or maybe next year, who knows? But once it opens, I feel like there's going to be an influx of people traveling to China, and there should be people ready to study, to travel to China and be prepared to explore what China has. It's a beautiful country. It's very interesting. So people will be equipped with the ability to talk to taxi drivers, talk to locals, to get around the city, just so make it a little bit easier for people to get around once China opens. And so students and adults will be prepared for that because of the classes that I've been teaching.
So now, so how long have you tutored Chinese?
I've been tutoring Chinese since for about 7 years. And then for the company I worked for, I started that in 2010.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now tell us about the type of students that, well, before I ask you that. So I'm assuming you're fluent, right, in
Yes,
Chinese. Okay.
Mandarin.
So who are the type of students that want to learn Chinese? So I feel like I'm thinking of public schools, like um it's I mean the common language I think is Spanish.
Right.
I mean that's my personal opinion. So when I hear that a student wants to learn Chinese, I'm like, wait, whoa. I feel
Right.
like there's such an outlier. Like, why? Like, not no shade to Spanish, but
Right.
it's always like Spanish is such like the go-to language in schools. So I'm wondering, like, who are the type of kids that come to you saying they want to learn Chinese?
Well, it varies. A lot of it is because of the the so it varies because a lot of kids are they like the Chinese characters. So since they have this affinity for the just the look of the Chinese characters, that's one way they're interested and a reason for them to study Chinese. A lot of times it's parents, who say, okay, we're going to learn a foreign language. It's going to be Chinese. But there are also kids who are just interested in Asia, just out of the blue. I have a friend, her son was interested in Asia, just Asia in general. And because of that, he wanted to branch into learning Chinese. So the reasons vary, but a simple interest for me and being genuine. I met a young lady a couple of weeks ago at a fair I attended, and she just wanted to study Chinese. She loved Asian languages. She started studying it on her own, Korean and Jap and Chinese. And so I'm her tutor to help shape it a little more, structure it a little more for her, because she was just doing it ad hoc, just looking at random videos. And her Chinese is pretty good for someone, studying on her own. But that was just her interest.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Um so I gotta address the elephant in the room. You are a black woman.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel that your ethnicity affects the way that you tutor your kids or affects the type of students that come to you?
I don't know if, in terms of effects, I feel like because I'm a black woman teaching Chinese, and because of my personality, I'm very practical and honest about one, how you are perceived in China when you speak Chinese, and also how I teach the language. I do try to connect the dots with our culture and the Chinese language. So Chinese, for example, Chinese is a rhythmic language. Language. It's a tonal language. So there's a beat. So the way I'm teaching the language, like think of it as a beat. You have to mimic my beat in order for you to say the word correctly because it's sensitive to the beat. So Chinese is not traditionally taught that way with the beat, and how the beat, we understand music, right? And so since we're a culture that understands and connects to music, that's how I kind of incorporate my teaching style is to incorporate music, you know, music that we know, that we're aware of, that we connect with, to Chinese. And it has worked because the kids get, oh yeah, I get it. Haven't you heard this? This said this way. Yeah, I said just like that. And so once I connect those dots that way, the kids and the adults, they get it. They understand it. So that's my style. As a Black woman teaching Chinese, I kind of incorporate our culture into the language. The other thing that I focus on is the practicality of being in China as a Black woman. One of the things that occurs as soon as you land is the oddness of being a Black person in Chinese. There will be a lot of Chinese, especially if you're in the tourist locations like Tiananmen Square, the Great Wall. There will be a lot of tourists crowding around you. And so one of the first words I learned in Chinese was bianzi. Bianzi is hair, braids, right? It's bianzi and tofa. That's the first words I learned. Your bianzi, your braids are beautiful. Your tofa, your hair is beautiful. Um, and so I teach the kids that because it's important for them to know what is being said to them and about them, right? In China. And so that's the first thing that the Chinese are in awe about, is because they've never seen this amount of braids in their hair. Because they do too, they keep it simple. But we as Black women, we have, our braids come in various styles, but it's usually a lot of braids. And because the Chinese in these tourist locations are coming from the countryside, they're not from Beijing, they're not from Nanjing or Shanghai, they're from the rural areas. So they're in awe because they've never actually seen a Black person or a Black woman in person. So when they see all these braids and they see our complexion, they're surprised and in awe when they see us once they go visit Tiananmen Square or the Great Wall.
Okay, so in while you're in China, you get more of like, is not like any like negative attention toward you or people attacking you. It's more of like, I want to touch your hair. You look like a mythical creature.
Well, so your perception and experiencing that type of situation is overwhelming. Okay, because if you're a 20-year-old or any age, it doesn't really matter, and you go to an environment where 15 people are running towards you to say, look, 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 a Black person, you don't know what's going on, whether you're by yourself or you're with a group of students, right? My students were high school students, so they were in groups, but there would usually be a group of Chinese surprised to see the foreigners, right? The Black girls, the foreigners. And it becomes overwhelming. So a lot of times it's because they don't know, they've never seen. So it comes out of that space 95% of the time. Okay. There are other spaces where it is based on, you know, uh, not not good intentions, right? Because racism exists, right? And that's because of the perception of Black people around the globe. So their perception is only what they see about Black people on television. But for most of the Chinese people that I've interacted with and met, they've never seen a Black person, so they want to have a conversation, or they're scared to have a conversation because they don't know what you're going to say. I've been in the countryside and people have run away from me, because they were surprised that I spoke or I talked, and they ran from me because they've never seen a Black person or a Black person with braids or a Black, it was a whole variety of things. So you have to remember to, and it's hard to put it in perspective, right? Because if it's your first time in China, you're like, why are they looking at me? Or you either embrace it or you're defensive, right? Because it's new. This is part of the culture shock. I've been going to China since the early 90s. At this stage, I don't even, it doesn't even, that's just what happens in China. I laugh. And it doesn't bother me. I like engaging in conversation. One, so that they know that I'm a regular person. And then two, once we have that conversation, they realize, oh, you have the same interests and love and you eat the same thing with two hands or not chopsticks, you're just like me. And so once you get that connection, everything dissipates, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you're regular." But for a lot of them, it takes them a long time for them to realize that you're a regular person. It does.
Mm. So it's so just before I ask my next question, so you've tutored students in Chinese while you were in China, or was it strictly here in America?
So in China, I did some tutoring in China while I guided my students, and there were American students in here in the States as well. But most of the students, it's a mixed bag, right? So some of the students when I was in China through my company, and then also when I'm here in the States, I also did some, I started my tutoring business here in the States.
Okay, so now that leads me to my question.
Okay.
so so it's when it comes to tutoring a foreign language, particularly while you're in China, one of the things, it sounds like one of the ways you want students to learn the language is to actually immerse themselves in the culture,
Yeah.
right? So it's not just, speaking the words. It's, they have to actually talk to somebody.
Yes.
That's one of the things that because I studied abroad in Rome, was that, I because I studied Italian for 4 years. So it's okay, I actually have to speak to somebody in Italian, right? So it's not just learning the language,
Yeah.
you actually have to talk to somebody, you have to interact, you have to um, ask for directions, you have to, uh, you know, purchase food, you have to, what do you do when you're lost? You have
Yeah.
to, when you're definitely in another country and English is not the first language, you really have to like, and it's like how you think in English, it's like now I have to think in the
Switch.
other language.
Yeah.
And it's like even like common idioms when we say like never mind in in English, it's like, wait, how do you say that in Italian? How do you say never mind
Yeah.
in Chinese? So
Right.
it's you really have to get into it.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
speaking another language.
Yeah.
So in terms of so here in America, so did you, I mean, just to stay on the race part a little bit more, so did you so did people know that you were a black woman, like when they were looking for a tutor, or was it a surprise? Or
Well, most of the people that, well, I usually put my face out there when I advertise or try to get, my marketing has my face on it, and it's a picture of me in China doing a speech in Chinese. So the background is in Chinese. Um, so usually people know that I'm a black woman that speaks Chinese. A lot of times when I'm out and about at fairs, people are surprised that I speak Chinese because they always say they've never heard of a black woman that speaks Chinese who speaks Chinese. So usually they're surprised by that on the onset. But then then some people don't care. It's like, okay, I'm looking for a tutor, a Chinese tutor.
all right, awesome. So you've got a mixture of
Yes,
reactions.
absolutely, absolutely. For Chinese who are looking for tutors, they're usually surprised, of course, that I speak because there are ABCs, American-born Chinese, who may, or people who have adopted Chinese kids and they don't speak the language, of course, because they were living in the States, and so for them, they're just looking for a tutor who can start guiding their kid, their child in learning their native language.
Mm-hmm. So you've encountered different types of people.
Oh,
It sounds
absolutely,
like,
absolutely,
right. So it
absolutely.
sounds like you've encountered, you've had the native born Chinese, and then you've encountered, parents,
Hmm.
um, probably of a different ethnicity, who
Yes.
have adopted Chinese children. So you've seen different types of family circumstances, and different types of people who have come to you.
Yes, because what I realize is that, and I've experienced this in China, of course. There are a wide range of people who speak Chinese. In China, I met people from either England, Spain, different Ghana, South Africa, you know, South Tomé, principal, like across the board, all types of people from different countries are learning Chinese. So my expectation is the same in the States. Obviously, depending on what community you're in, but the diversity is there of people who are interested in learning Chinese.
Mm. All right, all right, all right. So let's talk about the since the topic is about tutoring. Let's talk more about the like formality part. So, what ages, grades do you tutor?
So I started 10 years old um, with the tutoring. I feel like they have for my teaching style and skills, I prefer from 10-year-old so they can start saying things right away. And they get the small things faster as well. And then I go as far as high school, of course, and then adults. So my survival Chinese classes includes taxi cab. We call it taxi cab Chinese, so that you know how to get around when you get to China. For the students, the 10-year-olds, the grade school kids, it's important for them to know how to introduce themselves, know the who, what, where, why, and how. Those are important basic sentences or structures for them to know, and also know how to read characters. Right, that's the next stage because that's the hardest part. Writing characters, and everybody has their own challenge in Chinese. It might be writing characters, it might be reading characters, but everyone has their challenges. But for the adult classes, I try to focus on taxi cab Chinese so that they can read the characters once when they go to, once they start going to restaurants, um, how to get to the Great Wall, how to take the train. Those are the important things. The younger kids aren't going to be doing that right away, right? When they go to China, there will always be in a group until they get to college. So those elements, that focus on the education is not there until later. However, they are learning, the modes of transportation, like taking how to take a, how to use a sentence. Oh, I took a plane to get to China, for example, or to go to Jamaica, wherever your destination is. So the focus is different for both groups.
I'm hearing you talk right now, and the memories are coming back to
Yeah.
me. Like all, yeah, all the Italian. I did Italian in high school. I
Oh,
did in
good.
college. So it's all coming back to me. Like with the how to introduce yourself,
Yeah.
the different types of food, the different colors,
Yep.
numbers, months, dates, um, time,
Hmm.
directions, clothes. It's like it's all like coming back to me to hear.
That's great.
So the thing, just a thought that came to me as well is like the thing with Italian is that it's one of the Romance languages, I think, in
Yeah.
or whatever, I forgot what it's called, but it's similar to like Spanish and English and
Yes.
French. Like the spelling, you could tell uh, that the languages are similar to each other in nature, as opposed to Chinese, right? It sounds like it's a whole other planet. So how do you how do you tutor someone in Chinese? Well, it's a unique language all on its own. Because someone learning Spanish, it's like okay, you can get the gist of Italian, right? But with Chinese, it's a whole other thing because then you have the characters,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you tutor someone in a language that is unique on its own?
Well, you starting with the bare basics, right? I start with, for example, ni hao. Everyone knows how to say. Everybody heard the term ni hao, but when I teach it, I think of ni like your knee. How you doing? Ni hao. Okay. Oh, that's it. Oh, I can do that. Okay. Then we get to the next word, right? Because I do it based on words. And then once we get some of the words, then I focus on the pronunciation so we can fine tune what you're saying. After we do the pronunciation, because there's consonants, like in English, we have consonants and vowels in Chinese. Once we get focused on that, then I focus on the tones. Because you have in Chinese, for example, you have ma, 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 ma. One means horse, one means scold, one means mother, and one means question. And if you say it wrong, if you say it a different tone, one is everything is based on context, right? For you to understand what it really means, what ma means, but also you have to say it correctly, and the tones are extremely important in Chinese. So I usually start with the basics, but I also start with words that, words that sound like something in English, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just have to know how to, I have to teach them how to enunciate words that are different and distinct from the English language. So it's a lot of repetition, a lot of practice. Chinese is a lot of practice. The other thing that I do is, because Chinese is a tonal language and it's also a pictorial language, which means, for example, the character for person, right, is a stick figure. I'm sorry, the origin of the character for person is a stick figure, right? You have the head like hangman, right? And then the bottom, the two legs, is what represents person in Chinese. That's how it eventually evolved over time. So when you see the 2 feet, for example, that means person. So a lot of times in Chinese, you could look at a character and say, okay, this has something to do with a person, or this has something to do with a house because of the character for house. So there's different ways to identify the meaning of the word. So you have the reading part, which I just explained, but you also have the speaking part in Chinese. And once you understand that, it literally all comes together as you continue to practice Chinese.
Absolutely, absolutely. It all takes practice.
Absolutely.
You have to get the different tones,
Yes,
and each tone has a different meaning, and
it's
it's
hard.
you really have to get it.
It's
It's
hard.
so
Chinese is not easy. It is hard. I mean, there were times when I was studying Chinese and I'm like, I can't get this. It's so hard. And then once I get it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got it. I can say this now. And it just comes together, and it's all with everything you do, right? In Chinese, they have a saying called "maman lai," and "maman lai" means slowly it will come. So every little thing in Chinese, a lot of times you hear "maman lai," "maman lai." But when you're so frustrated trying to learn something new, just have patience with yourself because it will slowly come.
absolutely. It's patience, and it's a
Yeah.
long game too.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the thing with languages. I barely remember Italian, but it's 4 years of high school, 4 years of no, 3 or 4 years in college, but and I'm still not fluent. So, but it's a long game,
Yeah.
and that's the thing with learning languages.
Yeah.
It's definitely a
Absolutely.
long-term commitment that you have to make to
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
So, is there some, you know, is there some Chinese you could share with us?
Well, I did one, what like Ni Hao,
Mm-hmm.
is our famous one. Most people know that from the different cartoon shows that are out there, and from Rush Hour, of course, that everybody watched. You could say Zai Jian. Zai Jian is goodbye. Zai Jian, and it's fourth tone. Zai Jian. So if you say Zai Jian, Chinese people look at you like I don't know what you're saying. But if you don't do the right tone, Zai Jian, then, oh, you mean zaijian? You mean goodbye? Oh, okay, zaijian. Because the tones are everything in Chinese. Zaijian. Um, you can say tofa, right? Need the tofa. Your tofa, need the tofa. Piaoliang, they'll say. Your hair is beautiful. Or need the bianza. Your hair, your braids are beautiful. Ni is you. Bianza is braids. And piaoliang is beautiful. Oh, I was in Hawaii, and I was at the the Dole pineapple plantation, and there was a bunch of Chinese people there, and I was like, oh yeah, ni hao, oh a whole, it felt like I was right back in China, even though I was in Hawaii. They're like, because they were Chinese tourists in Hawaii, and they came, oh, ni the tofa pialiang, and they forget about you speak Chinese. And I said, yes, I speak Chinese, and they're like, well, your hair is so beautiful, you have so many braids, how many braids do you have? So they'll ask those type of questions, and it just makes it fun because I just like practicing anytime I can.
Have you where are you located right now? You're in
I
Georgia,
reside in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Are there is there a Chinatown there or a?
Yes, there's a Chinese area. I call it Chinatown because I'm from New York, so I just say Chinatown. And it's it's a part of northern Georgia. It's in Gwinnett County. But I go up there to get Chinese food like dim sum. I get hot pot. I go to that part of Atlanta or outside of Atlanta to eat good Chinese food. I call good Chinese food.
Ah, awesome, awesome, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, so there was a quote that you said during the preliminary interview. I wrote it down. I don't have it, but basically you said that you want to expose international studies to students more, somewhere
Yes.
along those lines.
Yes.
Can you and that resonated with me, especially since again, I went to China for 2 weeks for a youth summit. I also did Australia for 2 weeks, but that was another youth summit. I studied abroad in Italy. So so I want if you could talk more about what you said about you want to expose students more to international studies.
So one of the because of my first experience in China and it clicking, like I mentioned earlier, from when I was able to communicate in Chinese, what I had done at that point was find more scholarships and more opportunities for me to go abroad. I didn't come from a family that one was exposed to traveling to a foreign country like China. You know, everybody usually went to the Caribbean, but not Asia. And I didn't come from a very wealthy family at all. And so I had to find scholarships. And so I found them. And so every opportunity that I found that I had to go abroad, I found resources that today I share with everyone because everyone can go abroad. And so that's why I want to share this information that I have with others because one, the information is there. Now it's hard to find, it's sometimes a needle in a haystack, but I've collected all these scholarship opportunities over the years and I share it with people because I know it's beneficial. A lot of times, for example, when I was running my company in China, parents were one, they weren't aware of these opportunities. And a lot of times they say it's a once in a lifetime experience. And I know for a lot of people it is, but I don't think it is because if you want to go back, you can just find the opportunity. You can find the scholarship to go back. Been back and forth to China at least 6 or 7 times, and I found money every single time I went abroad. So I want to encourage students, young people, to take a chance. I'm a huge advocate. I'm always talking about studying abroad, traveling abroad. Even if you don't want to go to China, go somewhere. I don't care where it is, but go somewhere. Step out of your comfort zone because I had so much fun in China. I had fun. I met amazing people from countries that I had never heard of before. And because of that, I have friends all over the globe. And, it empowered me. And that empowerment has encouraged other students to go back to living in China or going to another country or taking chances, which you wouldn't traditionally take because you're in this bubble. So studying abroad is for me, I feel like it empowers young people and empowers adults. You know, when you get in touch with the culture and you find an opportunity to go abroad, it just empowers you and just opens your perspective about life in general.
Absolutely, and oh, haha, my sister's watching. Love it. She said, "Love it. Step out of your comfort
Hi.
zone." Awesome. Hi, Mindy. All right. Yeah, definitely. It's any opportunity you have, to study abroad. I definitely recommend taking it. It is because I feel like it's like we live in like one country forever.
Yeah.
I feel like, and even a state forever. So
Yeah.
even just like leaving because I'm in New York, so like leaving New York State, it's like whoa, like
Yeah.
even that itself is a culture shock. And let alone, excuse me, let alone leaving a country.
Yeah.
Like even that is a culture shock in itself because I feel
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
we stay in one place for a long time. So.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
hard. It's always hard to go to. I mean, I was scared every single time I went. I mean, not the last couple of times, but in the beginning when I went, I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I may not like the people in my group. All these things occur, but now, there are more people. And so what? So what if you don't know? You're going to have to experience it first to know how many you have to experience it first to get past that hump. And people are really scared to go back to because they don't know what to expect, so they get scared.
All right, we got a question here from Mindy again. She says, "How do we get more children of color to China?"
I try my best to talk to go to different outlets, whether it's a college prep program or just a speaking engagement that I've attended in the past to just talk to students about studying abroad. And a lot of them, they're reluctant. And so I'm a part of a couple of different organizations um, uh, who focus on trying to encourage more people of color to study abroad and study in China. But it's a challenge. It's something that I've been challenged with for many years, trying to encourage more um, kids who are scared, of getting out of that comfort zone because they don't really know what's on the other side. The students who have crossed over, right, and stepped out of their cut, they love it. And they're like, oh, I love this place. This is so much fun. My mom would like it. My brother would like it. And I'm like, well, just last week you wanted to go home and you didn't like this place. And they're like, yeah, I love it. China is fun. I'm because now they're open. Being open minded is you don't know what this level of fear sometimes can control you. And when you take that chance to study abroad, I think it just opens you up to just try new things, even if it's new food, right? Because when you try new food, you're also opening your eyes to something different that you've never heard of before. And studying abroad just opens all the gates open for you.
Yeah, and then to add to that, like the reason why I was able to go abroad was because of programs that were implemented,
Right,
right? So like I went to China, I went to Australia because of a youth summit,
right.
right? So I studied abroad in Italy because, well, I went to a college that has a campus in Italy, right? So it's we as a community, particularly communities of color, I think we need to create more programs. It's
Yeah,
sort of like it's an excuse to get out the country, right?
yeah,
You don't want
yeah.
to go just to go, well, unless you
Yes,
do, but
yes, you can.
but it helps to have particularly when you're trying to engage youth.
Yes.
I think it's important to implement programs that will encourage them to get out the country.
Yes, yeah. I think programs are the key, and it's a more it gives you that support and comfort, one for the students and for the parents, right? When you initially do abroad, my programs were always program based before I went on my own, and I think that helps everyone out because you have someone that can account for your well-being, right? Well-being, because you don't want to get snatched up and picked up, etc. So once you're in a program, someone always knows where you are. And I think that is helpful because I was scared. What if something happens to me? My mom won't know, etc. But once you're in a program, they always know where you are, where you're supposed to be. So I think when you want to start off, definitely start off with a program because I don't think any kids under, young kids should go abroad anyway by themselves, high school either. My first program was in China. I did it in a program. And I think that's the for me, I think that's the best way to do it because I don't know the country. That's scary.
Of course. I just want to get these comments here. Mindy says, experience the fear to get past it. Love it. And again, she says, truth. Life gets more exciting when you experience new cultures and take the
Good
chance.
chance.
Thank you, Mindy. All right. All right. So we're going to start to wind things down now. So, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think my words of wisdom is just reiterating um, the fact that to take a chance. That's really it. To take a chance. um, and try something new. That's my words of wisdom for everything. But in particular for studying abroad, you know, people let that fear of the unknown prevent them from filling out the application. You know, on just that level, on that simplistic letter, filling out the application, and then they'll doubt themselves. Oh, they may not get in. Who knows? Fill out the application first. And I've walked kids through these stages of just filling out the application, getting the recommendation letter. So take a chance and go for it.
And tying it so to tie it back into the tutoring part as well. I know we talked about studying abroad, but just to bring it back to the topic a little bit. So now, what advice do you have for students learning a different language?
Be open minded. It's not easy in the beginning. It's going to be a challenge, but the end result is exciting. So try studying a foreign language. Uh, Pick something. If you don't know which language to pick, pick anyone. Even if you're not sure which one you want to choose, which one you want to speak, pick one and start from there as your starting point to study a foreign language.
And what about, just to bring it back to race again, like what about children of color? How do we get more children of color to learn another language?
I think when kids find out, there are other people of color who speak their foreign language, that encourages them. Um, and to get more students of color, it's on us. It's The onus is on me, people like me and you, to just spread the word and encourage students. So instead of saying, why would you go to China, like I heard when in the beginning, from people outside of my family, why would you go to China? Instead of people saying that, just say, well, why not? Why don't you go to China? Why don't you go to Italy? Why don't you go to Japan? Encourage them, because and nothing but good things would happen for them. So I think the words of encouragement is supposed to happen to encourage more students of color to go abroad.
Awesome, awesome. All right, we got another comment from Mindy. She says, my daughter takes language classes with Miss Sandra and loves it. It helps to have a teacher who looks like you and is so down to earth.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mindy. All right. So her daughter is my niece.
Yes.
So you are in the family. So, thank you for your services. And I think it's a big deal to, and it looks like we're going to go over time, but that's okay. It's a big deal to learn another language. And well, for college, I happened to be in a program that makes you take another language.
Right.
So I didn't have a choice. But then I chose, but that could have just been a 1 year thing. And I made the personal choice to continue it. I made the choice to do it as a minor. I made a choice to
Yeah.
go to Italy, so
Yeah.
I think it's that, again, the fact that I was in a program that forced me to do another language, you know, it exposed me to it, and 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 then the opportunities were there.
Yeah.
So I think it's that initial exposure. I think, but we as a community need to have these opportunities available, and
Yeah.
I think people need to see it, particularly people of color.
Yeah. I mean, it's a combination of things, right? Of interest and programs and exposure and opportunity. It's just a whole gamut of things that get inspire students and say, "Oh yeah, I'll try that." And sometimes you only get one out of a group of 100, and that's okay, because that one student will, change their lives, will be changed simply because they're not doing whatever that traditional route is. They're doing something different out of their comfort zone. They're trying something new, and because of that, then it was always worth it. Then it's always worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We're going to stop right here. I think I see you two more times. So
Okay,
I
thank
definitely am
you.
looking forward to this conversation. All right. So let's get your promo. All right, you guys. So Sandra she just has two Instagram accounts, so but you could follow her on Instagram. So she has two accounts. So she has a business account. It is Chatting Connecting. There's a few extra T's in there. So make sure you catch all that. And I'll just spell it out for the audio people. So Instagram is ChattenConnectTN. Okay. So that's the business Instagram. And then the personal Instagram is Shangjie57.
Yes, my Chinese name.
Yes. Oh, you have a Chinese name. Yeah. Yes. All right. So I'll just spell that out for the audio people. So that's SHANGJIE57. So I encourage you to go to both of her Instagram accounts. I encourage you to follow her. And she tutors Chinese, you guys. So if you're looking to get into Chinese, whether beginner, intermediate, advanced, whether it's for your child or even you do adults, right?
Yes.
Okay. So whether it's for your child or for adults, she tutors all ages, you guys, at all levels. So I encourage you to reach out to her. You can find her again on Instagram. She has two accounts. So that information is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen. For my video people and for my audio people, all of this information will be in the description. I think I see another comment. And there we go. my sister's hyping you up. She put your Instagram link. She actually put up the full Instagram link. So there you go. So those of you watching this on video right now, the link is on your screen, instagram.com/chattingconnecting. So I'm tongue-tied today. Yeah, so we're hyping you up. We're hyping you up. So that is the link. So I encourage you guys to go to that link. You see it on your screen, to follow her. And again, if you're listening on audio, because this will be converted to a podcast, converted to audio, is in the description, you guys. So whether you're seeing it on screen or you're reading it in the description, this information is at your fingertips. So is there anything else you want to share about your business? Oh, and your video. Yes. Okay. Yes. Is there anything else you want to share about your business?
No, that's all. Just go to the Instagram page, and if you're interested in Chinese classes, group classes, private classes, adults or Chinese or students, please let me know and just send me a message or send me a message in my Instagram.
Awesome. All right. And the youngest is 10 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're just virtual, right?
Yes.
All right. So you're strictly virtual. Wait, do you do in person in your local area?
In person, I do in my local area. Yes. There are some after school programs that I'm working with in Atlanta because it's easier to get to here, of course.
All right. There you go. So Sandra, you heard that, guys. Sandra is primarily virtual, but if you happen to be in Atlanta, Georgia, she has some in-person services as well. So I encourage you to take advantage of that if you happen to be in the local area. All right. So I know we are definitely going to go over time, but that is all right. If you have to go, feel free to go, but I want to make sure we get this audiogram before we officially close. So I'm going to play this for you now.
Okay.
Ni hao. I speak Mandarin Chinese. That's right. I recommend Chatting and Connecting. Chatting and Connecting is an international education consulting organization that advises students on scholarships to study abroad. Their premier program, Chatting in Chinese, teaches Mandarin Chinese in a structured, fun, and easy way. You will learn the numbers, introductions, and other common phrases, along with the ability to read and write Chinese characters. The Chatting in Chinese program teaches both private and group classes for adults and children. For more information, go to Chatting and Connecting on Instagram. That's Chat and Connect with 2 T's and the letter N. Or email at info@chatconnect.com for the upcoming class schedule.
Awesome. All right, so there you go. And I just had a next question before we close.
Sure.
So is it just you just do conversational Chinese, or do you actually like teach students how to write the characters?
Also writing, reading and writing. Yes.
Reading and writing.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the
great.
first level is conversation, and then the next level will be reading and writing.
All right, awesome. Do you have the advanced people where they have to write like essays and the Chinese
Yes.
characters?
Yeah. I had to write
Oh,
the
you do?
essays. I had to write the essays in school. My term paper, my thesis. Yes. So when you get to that level, I mean, even at a younger level, you'll do basic sentences. But when you are more advanced, yes, you have to eventually do longer paragraphs, etc.
Oh, wow. Okay, a whole that's wow. Like
Yeah.
10-page papers in
Yep.
Chinese
I
too?
had to write them. So yeah.
Mhm. All right, well, if you had to do it, the students are going to do it too.
Yes, they do eventually.
You
Yes.
got to push these kids.
Yes.
All right. All right, so Sandra, thank you so much for joining me today. This
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
Shishia.
And I look forward to Sheshe. Is that
Yep.
how you say it? Okay.
Thank you. Shishia.
And I look forward to our conversations coming up.
Okay, great. Thank
All
you.
right, so I will place you off camera now. All right, you guys. Whew, that is awesome. Thank you, guys. All right, wait, we got a next comment. Great conversation. Thank you, Mindy. All right, you guys. So now it is time for my closing. Where's my banner? All right, there's my banner. All right, you guys, we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And I hope you guys took a lot from it as I did. And any opportunity to geek out about tutoring and studying abroad and going to different countries and speaking different languages, I cherish all that. So I definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to the next couple of conversations with Sandra. So yes. All right, but it is closing time. So I want to remind you guys that this podcast, Hot Topics, is a production of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if in the scope of tutoring, if you are looking for one-on-one tutoring, test prep, college counseling, editing and proofreading, if you're looking for any of those services for your child or even for yourself, because we work with adults, please reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also email us at success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. Our contact information is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen if you are watching this on video. But if you are listening to this on audio, if you are listening to this on Spotify or Good Pods or Apple Podcast or any kind of podcast platform that is out there, all of this information is in the description. I did not forget about you, but please reach out to us if you are looking for tutoring services. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. There's a couple more. It's not coming to me right now. WhatsApp and Eventbrite. So follow us on social media. Stay in touch with us. I encourage you to follow us as well. And I also want to encourage you to leave your feedback about the episode for today. I want to know your thoughts. What did you think about this episode? Leave your feedback in the comment section or in the comment thread or drop a rating. Definitely let me know what you thought about this episode today. I definitely want to hear your thoughts. So, wherever you are hearing the sound of my voice, whether it's on video or on audio, drop a comment, drop a note, drop a star, drop a rating, drop something. Let me know what you thought about this episode today. So I encourage your feedback. I want your feedback. All right, you guys, thank you so much for this. And thank you for joining me today. I look forward to you joining me in the next episode. Now, it's time for me to go. I should have asked her, how do you say goodbye in Chinese? I already forgot. But I'll see you guys next time. I am now signing off. Bye, you guys.